right, so I hate talking in front of people as much as anybody else. So, all right, so you'll probably see that card go up that says I'm running out of time. Don't worry about it. That means I am going to go over a tad. But okay, so I'm Chad Mossholder. I'm composer and sound designer at Sony Online Entertainment. I'm working on DC Universe Online, compose music for that. Working on PlanetSide 2 and EverQuest Next. Those are some of the big projects. And tonight I wanted to talk about not so much composing music or doing sound design, because that's more than you can really tackle in 10 minutes, but more about balancing your creative output for yourself with commercial work. And I think this is something that seems obvious, but is overlooked a lot. And I'm glad to see that many of the speakers were talking about a similar subject and maintaining their own personal art practice along with their commercial artwork. So let's see if my clicker works. All right. So yes, commercial art practice. And one of the things I find, because I consider myself as an artist, a sound artist, aside from doing my everyday game job, as a composer and a sound designer. And one of the things I find that helps me is that because I do my own creative output on the side, it opens me up at work for criticism and to become better and to take the experimentation that I've done from my personal artwork into the commercial world and vice versa. So for instance, if I come in and do some music and the creative director says, yeah, it's good, but we want to change this and maybe move this around, my response is, cool, yeah, we can do that because this isn't my only creative baby, so to speak. I've got another thing that is really what a big passion of mine also, and they're equal because I absolutely love my job at SOE and I can't imagine doing anything else. But so let's look at quick background. So I studied music and photography, actually, for my undergraduate degree. I started in the video games industry in about 2000 as a sound designer and worked my way into composer, and then went on and got my master's degree in film and new media from San Diego State University. So I want to do a real quick story about getting into the games industry, because this is something people always ask me, is like, well, how did you get into the games industry? And there's lots of people that talk about this, but I just have one funny story that I think is worth telling. So I was studying music and photography, and I was looking for a way to make money, of course, doing music, and I loved video games. Absolutely, and so I thought, well, there's a good opportunity. I'll try to write music for video games. So I went onto a site at the time called GameJobs.com. I don't even know if it's still relevant, but I went on there and did a search for audio, and I found a startup company in Boulder, Colorado, and I was living in Kent, Ohio, finishing my degree at Kent State, and they were looking for an entry-level sound designer. And at the time, I did not really know what that meant, but I thought, hey, it's audio, it's entry-level. What the hell? So I emailed them, and they emailed me back fairly quickly and said, great, send us your resume, send us your sound effects reel, and don't send any music. We're not interested in your music. We have a composer, just send us your sound effects demo reel. So I was like, oh, what's a sound effects demo reel? Okay, so I went online again, and I went to gamasutra.com, which is still very active, and I found a very short article that a guy had written on how to make a sound effects demo. And he had 3 main points, and I just followed him. And one was, tell a story with your audio. Don't just send a catalog of sound effects. Nobody wants to click through a catalog of sound effects. So build an environment and keep it under 5 minutes. So those were the 3 points. And I was like, well, that's interesting, because the music that I was writing was very, it comes out of the musique concrète tradition, so it's very cut and paste collage. At the time, I was very interested in experimental electronic music like Stockhausen and John Cage and things like that. And so I was like, great, that's kind of what I do anyhow. So I went around for the next couple days recording sounds that are in my house, from everything from the cat to the refrigerator to the microwave, and bicycles. And then I took some library sounds like helicopters and explosions, and I made this narrative, albeit a very surreal narrative, but it was sort of a narrative and a journey. And I sent the disc off, and about 2 weeks later, I got a phone call, and they wanted to do a phone interview. Like, wow, cool. So did the phone interview. Then I passed that, and I got flown out and did an in-person interview. I did an audio test. They asked me a lot of questions about making reverb for snow levels, which was very strange for me at the time. But anyhow, I passed it, got the job. That was my entry. Now, that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is, so years later, the woman that hired me, the audio director at the company, she goes, Chad, you know when we hired you for that position, we had a box of demos like this big. And she said, I had been going through them for like a week, and they all sucked. And so one night I'd been there all day, crunching, and then I still had to go through these demos, and we had to fill this position. And she said, so I got really frustrated, and I dumped the box out. Well, my demo was at the bottom of the box. Now it was at the top of the pile. And the cool thing was, I had, for some reason, thought, it'd be cool to take my demo and put it on this bright red CD in a clear case. And so I did that. And so she told me it caught her eye immediately. So she grabbed it and put it in, and she was like, oh, thank God, one that doesn't suck. So that's how I got moved to the top of the call pile, which apparently I was the only one in the call pile at the time. But then that's how I got into the industry. So a little bit of research, a little bit of, I hope, making a good demo, and a little bit of luck. So the point of that story is anyone can do it. So there you go. You should go get into the games industry as soon as you can. So now let's talk a little bit about what does working in the commercial world mean. So for me, here's some of the titles I've worked on, and it's really being creative every day, and coming into work and having to do combat music for the 4th day in a row, and you're like, I don't know how I can make another interesting combat piece of music, but you just do it, and you make this as cool as you can. And then telling a story, enhancing the mood, and then this is the key difference between my personal art practice and my commercial work, and that, in the commercial world, yeah, it's personal, and I'm making something that I like, but ultimately I'm servicing the story, I'm servicing the game, I'm trying to create an amazing experience for the players, and I want to reinforce everything that's going on. So, whereas with my personal artwork, I can do whatever I want, it's nice. So, working with tools and people, and it's a fun and rewarding work. So, I want to show you a quick little cutscene from DC Universe, and this has some of my music, sound design, and Mark Hamill doing the voice of the Joker. And this is just to give you an idea of my commercial work, and then I'll show you my artwork, personal artwork, after, later on.
I love pain. I love suffering. I love dead puppies and killing jokes, crippled cops and great, big, giant explosion. I love twisting the bat up so tight you can hear his spine scream deep down inside. And now I have so many more delightful villains to play with. Why, I might not even kill some of you. I love being the Joker.
Okay, so that's a little example from DC Universe. Funny little, thanks. Just a little trivia about that. The motif, the musical motif at the beginning, reoccurs at the end, only it's inverted in retrograde as the Joker is flipped over, and it also starts in a major and ends in a minor, so it's just funny stuff that nobody probably notices, but it's there. So personal art practice, and I'm going to go quick now, because I'm nervous and I took too much time. Okay, so the paths that I've found for my own personal artwork are my own experimental music, art installations, and creating soundtracks for experimental film, which all things that I love. I'm very much into experimental electronic sound. I'm really a sound designer at heart, and I pretend that I'm a composer. So as an artist, I have freedom of expression and able to experiment, get to work with others. I've had a collaboration with my friend Mark America, who's a fantastic artist, and that's led me to show my work at the Louvre the Museum of Moving Images, and the Tate Modern, to name a few. So that's been very great. So, and I've also been a resident artist for the Center of Creative Arts in Latrobe. So, and it also gives you additional income. And these albums on the side here is my side project called Twine. It's an electronic music project. I'm about to release a solo album, because Twine is actually with another friend of mine. And I want to play you just a clip of what my personal music sounds like, so you can really hear the difference between the commercial side and the art side, and how I have examples that show the crossover, but I don't have time to show that stuff. But I wanted you to hear the difference between the two. So this is something I'm getting ready to release. So I won't play the whole thing because we're out of time. But so the point is that each world informs the other. So, you know, by having by having my art not be the sole, the sole income for me and my family, that's great, because that means I don't water down my art. I do exactly what I want. I can experiment and fail. It doesn't matter. And then I've always got my commercial art that I absolutely love also, to keep me moving and allow me to do my own personal artwork and express myself in that way. So I think the two should be just as equal. I know we're trained to think about our careers, and we have to pay, the bills and everything, and that's fine, but we also have to be true to ourselves and create the work that we want to create for ourselves on the side, and not let it be, diverted by needing money. So that's always the trick, isn't it? So that's the real quick version of that. And I'm actually submitted to do a longer version on creativity for Captivate. So hopefully that will happen, and I'll be able to show some more work and talk about the creative process in more depth at a longer talk. So thanks.